Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are covering all of the action from the divisional round of the 2025 playoffs of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So we've got 4 games to cover today from the playoffs. Top seeds got in on the action, and we got down from 8 teams to 4 left in the playoff race. So we'll cover those 4 games in depth, and we'll look at the upcoming championship round with what is technically week 21. We'll get into an updated draft order, and then cover any new extensions that came out from the sync this week. And then our feature today is called Who's Next? It was mentioned in Discord that there are 7 remaining franchises who have not made our playoffs in 4 years. We're going to look at those 7. I'm going to rank them by how close I think they are to that goal. So it should be fun. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the first game of the divisional round was between the Dolphins and the Steelers. Steelers the top wild card and Dolphins the number 1 seed in the AFC. Dolphins started out strong. In the first quarter, all 3 of their drives went into Pittsburgh territory, but they came away with no points. They missed a 46-yard field goal. They punted from the Pittsburgh 41-yard line, and then Hammonds threw an interception past midfield. So Pittsburgh then got some opportunities. In the second quarter, they missed their own field goal, a 49-yarder, but finally scored on the next drive, with Robert Morris breaking off a 44-yard run and then running in it again from 8 yards out for the touchdown and the first points of the game. The Dolphins immediately responded, going 75 yards in 10 plays, with Hammonds finding Gregory Sellers for a 23-yard touchdown pass to tie things at 7. Later, after a Pittsburgh field goal, Miami scored in quick fashion, with Hammonds hitting Arden Ejiofor for a 39-yard gain, and then his tight end, Jamie Ramirez, for a 38-yard touchdown. So 2 plays going the length of the field, 77 yards, and retaking the lead, 14-10 Dolphins at that point. Moving to the second half now. Third quarter, we had a couple of field goal attempts. Miami made theirs. Pittsburgh missed theirs. So it was 17-10 going into the fourth quarter, when Miami put together their longest drive of the game, 14 plays, and they went 78 yards. Ultimately, Hammonds finding Lawrence Sanders for a 5-yard touchdown pass. Dolphins would miss the extra point, so it was 23-10 at that point. Pittsburgh responded, Morris breaking off another great run, a 28-yarder, setting up DeAndre, don't forget to eat your Weeders, for a 34-yard touchdown run, bringing the Steelers back within a score at 23-17. Miami then drove down and got a critical field goal to make it again a 2-score lead with just over 4 minutes to go. On the ensuing kickoff, Pittsburgh free safety Robert Cook returned the ball all the way to the Miami 22-yard line. So it took the Steelers just 4 plays to score, and it was Weeders again on a 3-yard touchdown run. Pittsburgh then missed their extra point, making it 26-23. Miami just needed a first down to clinch the game, but on 3rd and 6 from their own 22, Hammonds went deep with the ball and found cornerback James Klasky, who intercepted the ball at midfield. Now, it was a deep pass, so the Steelers still had some work ahead of them, and then Damon Lucas followed up with a huge sack of Morris. Morris threw 2 incompletions, and that was the end of the game. So despite that late gaffe and possible late hope for the Steelers, the Dolphins did hold on, avoided going once and done, and advanced to the AFC Championship game, which, as the top seed, they will host. Hammonds, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns. Gregory Sellers, 175 total yards from scrimmage on 37 touches and a score. Damon Lucas with that huge sack to make sure the Steelers did not get their last score in or get in range for a final field goal. Robert Morris only completed 9 passes, but for 133 yards. He also ran for 140 yards and a score, and Weeders had 2 scores as well. But special teams really hurt the Steelers with a couple of missed field goals and a missed extra point, leading to the Dolphins escaped with the victory in this one. In our first NFC game of the weekend, the Panthers came back from an 18-point deficit to stun the Packers at the final second and advance to the championship game. Panthers started out hot. Very first drive, Link found Russell Barnes for a 56-yard gain, but it only led to a missed field goal attempt for the Panthers. And then Garibay took over. He found Remick Phelps for a 51-yard gain, and then again for a 1-yard touchdown to give the Packers the early lead. Carolina responded with a 30-yard field goal, finally getting on the board. But Packers extended their lead in the second quarter. They went 71 yards in an 11-play drive. Garibay throwing his second touchdown pass of the day to Carl Frost from 6 yards out. Packers would go into the half with a 14-3 lead. Then they extended it on the first drive of the third quarter. Garibay to Nwachukwu for a 27-yard gain. Phelps again for 18 yards. And then to Donald Galligan for a 4-yard touchdown. Garibay's third passing touchdown of the day and a 21-3 lead for the Packers at home. Carolina, though, finally found the end zone. They went 85 yards in 12 plays on the very next drive, aided by a roughing call on Philip Wilcox. And that one ended with Link finding Russell Barnes for a 1-yard touchdown pass, making the score 21-10 at that point. Green Bay then went 3 and out, and Link took over again, found Russell Barnes for 14, and then Fernando Owens for 12, and then 36, and then a 9-yard touchdown. They went for 2, didn't get it, but at that point it was already a one-score game, 21-16, still in the third quarter. So a couple of quick strikes from the Panthers to get back in the game. Green Bay then drove to the Carolina 13-yard line, looking to add to their lead. But Garibay got sacked twice by Stephen Kapfhammer for a total of 21 yards lost, which meant that the ensuing field goal attempt was from 48 yards out, and it missed. So the lead was still 5. Garibay would be sacked twice on the next drive as well. Panthers D-line really taking over the game at that point. 9 minutes to go in the game now. Carolina misses a 41-yard field goal, so the lead is unchanged. Green Bay drives to the Carolina 40-yard line, but they punt for a touchback. Carolina takes over. At this point, 5.5 minutes to go. Carolina 80 yards away from their first lead. Kelvin Dupree started things off great with a 28-yard run. Later on a 3rd and 10, Link found tight end Don Scott for a 19-yard gain. They continued moving the ball, and then it was 4th and 1 from the Green Bay 19-yard line. Kelvin Dupree ran for 5 yards to keep the drive alive. 3 plays later, another fourth down, this one 4th and 9, with 56 seconds to go, but Link found Marco Thompson for exactly 9 yards, just enough to convert and get him to first and goal. And then Link found Russell Barnes for the second time in the end zone, a 4-yard touchdown with 14 seconds left. Kelvin Dupree ran it in for the 2-point conversion, and the Panthers were victorious, 24-21. Again, coming back from 18 points down and scoring the last touchdown in the final seconds to upset the Packers and make their way to the NFC Championship game. Dakota Link, 318 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, 2 to Russell Barnes. Garibay was fantastic as well, 281 yards on 25 of 33 passing and 3 touchdowns for him, including 129 yards to his tight end, Phelps. Kapfhammer with a big game for the Panthers as well, 4 sacks for him as the Panthers complete the comeback in dramatic fashion and win this playoff game. In the afternoon, we started things off with Cleveland going to Denver to face the Broncos. This one went very similar to their regular season meeting, with the Broncos winning by 18. But the Browns started off very strong. Very first play out of the gate, Juan Mora breaks it for 68 yards. That led to a short Chappa field goal. Denver went 3 and out. Mora again ran it for 9 yards, then ran for a 56-yard touchdown. So just like that, Cleveland was up 10-0, and Mora had already run for over 100 yards. But Denver got the ball back, drove down to the end zone in 12 plays, ending things with a Hugh Kahn 16-yard touchdown run. In the second quarter, Browns still leading and driving, but after a short catch, wide receiver William Mass fumbled the ball. Denver recovered at the Cleveland 34-yard line and needed only one play. Cooper McGuff running it in from 34 yards out. Second rushing touchdown for the Broncos and their first lead of the game at 14-10. Later in the second quarter, Denver went 74 yards in 10 plays, 9 of them runs. Kahn got his second rushing touchdown of the game from 5 yards out, 21-10 the score at that point. And then Cleveland did score right before the half to keep things interesting. Mora had a 12-yard run, Rivera had a 22-yard run, and then Rivera, the big play, a 35-yard touchdown pass to tight end Stephen Ehlers. So just before half, the Browns got back within 4. It was 21-17 at that point, and looked like it could still be a game. But the second half entirely belonged to the Broncos. Fullback Michael Carter broke off a 42-yard run early in the third quarter. That set up a Peter London to Charles Grady touchdown pass from 7 yards out, pushing the lead back to 11 points. Still in the third quarter, next drive, London found Raymond Stelly for a 51-yard gain. McGuff got his second touchdown run. And then after a Rivera interception, Kahn would get his third rushing touchdown of the game, this one from 15 yards out. And the Broncos would coast from there. So 42-24 ultimately is the final score. Hugh Kahn, 146 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Michael Carter added 119 rushing yards as well. Juan Mora hit 200 for the Browns after that big first quarter, including a touchdown, but it was not enough to carry the team. And the Broncos advance to their 4th consecutive AFC Championship game. The final game of the weekend saw the division rivals, Eagles and Commanders, facing off against each other. Commanders the top seed, Eagles the number 7 seed. Commanders came out ahead in this one, 65-38 was the final score. On the very first drive, Philadelphia drove all the way to the Washington 5-yard line. They did settle for a field goal. That was a familiar theme this weekend. Washington responded with Morrison finding his tight end, Randy Wright, for a 49-yard gain. And then ultimately Stephen Tabbert for a 3-yard touchdown pass. Washington would miss the extra point, so it was 6-3 at that point. Philadelphia drove into Washington territory again, but missed a tying 48-yard field goal. Then in the second quarter, with it 6-6, in the second quarter, Poole had an incredible drive. Aaron Poole went 6 of 6 on that drive to 4 different receivers for a total of 80 yards and a touchdown to Denzel Green from 9 yards out, putting the Eagles back on top 10-6. Eagles then got a stop and took the ball over again. Poole found Badgley for a 49-yard gain, then Gilberto Silva for a 7-yard touchdown, and it was 17-6, Eagles leading. Randy Espino returned the ensuing kickoff to the Philadelphia 38-yard line. They handed the ball to Stephen Tabbert 4 straight times, and he found the end zone, bringing it to 17-13. And then after a stop, Espino was at it again, a 90-yard punt return touchdown to put Washington on top 20-17 going into halftime. In the third quarter, the Commanders' offense picked up where they left off. Morrison to Wright for a 49-yard gain, and then Tabbert finding the end zone again on a 9-yard run. Increasing the Washington lead. And then defense got a stop. Espino returned this next punt 94 yards for his second touchdown of the game and a 17-point lead. Philadelphia wasn't done. They stuck around. They put together an 11-play drive. They went 65 yards, ending in an Alsadek 5-yard touchdown run that closed it to 34-24. Washington took the ball over, went down the field in 9 plays. Morrison had passes of 13, 15, and 14 yards. Ultimately, Tabbert again ran it in from 3 yards out. Philadelphia drove into Washington territory, missed a field goal, and Tabbert took over, ran it for 60 yards, and then ran a 9-yard touchdown in. That made it 48-24, and the Commanders coasted from there. Lots of points scored after that point. Again, 65-38 was the final in that one. Stephen Tabbert, 225 yards, 5 touchdowns rushing, plus a receiving touchdown. Randy Espino, over 300 return yards and a couple of scores from him. So Commanders running and passing and getting scores on special teams. Aaron Poole was phenomenal in his capacity, 31 of 43, 417 yards and 3 touchdowns, including 156 to Ronald Spencer. But ultimately, this was the Commanders' day in every phase of the game, and they came ahead with the victory and advancing to their 3rd NFC Championship game in 4 years. So, this is where we stand next week. Winners advancing to Super Bowl 4. We'll start off with Denver at Miami. The matchup that was always meant to be, in some people's minds, definitely the far and away the top 2 seeds in the AFC. Will meet in Miami to see if Miami can break Denver's streak of 3 consecutive conference championships. And then Carolina will go to Washington. This is a rematch of a Week 15 game, which Washington won handily. But the games aren't decided until they play them on the field. So top wild card, Carolina at the top seeded Washington Commanders for the NFC title. Also interesting to note, Carolina and Washington are the only 2 teams to beat Denver this season. So we could potentially see a regular season rematch if Denver is victorious. Also, Miami and Denver did play 2 years ago in the playoffs. Denver defeated Miami 28-20 in the divisional round. That game was also in Miami, and that was en route to Denver's lone Super Bowl victory, which they won as a wild card. But yeah, those are the games that we will see next week to see who makes their way into Super Bowl 4. So this is the current draft order. With the events of this week, we add 25 through 28. Pittsburgh would be 25, but the Chargers own that pick, just as they own the 24th pick from the Rams. So the Chargers are slotting in there for now, and then we have Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Green Bay, 4 losers from this weekend, ranked in order of their record. And then, of course, the final 4 teams, Carolina, Arizona, who has Denver's first-round pick, Miami, Washington, those will go in the final 4 spots in some order. Our 2 losers next week will be 29 and 30, and then our Super Bowl runner-up will be 31, and, of course, our champion, 32. Again, lots could happen before the draft. At least currently, this is where the picks stand, with one already announced trade between the Jets and Cincinnati. So 5 and 10 have been flipped, as presumably once the offseason starts, that trade will go into effect. Here are all the extensions that were accepted last week. Buffalo making some big moves to retain some veterans. Marquez Allen, who was a high draft pick in that initial 22 draft. Free safety Adam Greer, who was a 79 overall. And then Yusei Asensio, a bit surprising there, as they had declined his 5th-year option to give them some flexibility. Based on his play, I thought they might be moving on. There's a rumor they might be trying to keep him around as a backup. Seems expensive for that, but we will see what their plan is and if they make any other big quarterback moves in this offseason. But for now, Asensio is staying in Buffalo for the time being. Carolina re-signing their cornerback for a pretty hefty sum. Again, this is another 25-year-old from the 22 draft who should be improving with that A potential in the years to come. Cleveland locking up Robert Smith for another couple of years, their veteran center. The Chargers, Diego Johnson, another one of those names that they were looking to keep, along with Aguilera and a couple other big names. And Jesus Gonzalez, I believe, is another. So he'll be sticking around. The Giants tackle Bruce Allen and Eric Arredondo, both re-signing. And then Seattle guard Marty Ferguson coming to terms with the team as well. Buffalo still in talks with Jan Summers. Green Bay still working on deals with Joe Perez and Junior Ogba from that 22 draft class. Miami rejected by Jeremy Moreland. This is a surprising one. I'm surprised they extended the offer. They have indicated they are going to sign him, mostly out of stubbornness. So people see how much he gets out of the team at this point to keep him around, and how much he ruins the curve for teams coming after him, trying to sign high 60s cornerbacks. And then Phil Calhoun for Washington, still working on a deal as well. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, there are 7 franchises who have yet to break into the NFL playoffs. So I want to talk a little bit of the state of those franchises as I see them, and talk about who I would be betting on being the next to break through that ceiling. So at the top of the list, I'm going with the Houston Texans. They just went 7-10 in a very competitive AFC South. They have a whole bunch of great young players, especially on offense: Travis Neeble, Ryan Johnson, and Elijah Rader. So a very, very strong core identity on offense with that two-headed rushing attack. They had a great scoring defense this year. Raise your hand if you knew that the Texans were top 5 in scoring defense. I certainly didn't. 19.2 points per game allowed, 5th in the NFL. They got a ton of cap space going into this offseason. I think the most of any team. And in the upcoming draft, they have 6 picks in the top 100. They have their own first, second, and third. They have the Giants' second. They have Denver's second, and they have Minnesota's third. So again, a team already with a strong identity on offense and a lot of capital, both in terms of dollars and draft capital, to make some big moves and acquire some big players. If I were a betting man, which I'm not because I'm the league commissioner, I would be looking at them as, I think, the next team to possibly break through and make their first playoff appearance. Right behind them, have to call out the Seattle Seahawks. They went 10-7 and missed the playoffs on tiebreakers. So certainly of all the teams, they got the closest just on this year. I think they've got a solid core there. I think Jeremiah West could use some more weapons in terms of wide receiver and tight end. So maybe see them going after something in free agency and or the draft. I think Seattle also has a favorable division set up in that division with Arizona and San Francisco. They'll have to contend with a second place schedule in the coming year. So that could prove difficult depending on how things shake out. But I think reason for optimism there in Seattle. Next, I'm going with Baltimore, who just finished a 6-11 season. Have an incredible defensive line on paper with David Sparacino, and then Pro Bowl hopeful Jeffrey Jesse. They're in the middle of that defensive line, but still they allowed 28.8 points per game last season, very low in the rankings. In addition to the defensive line, they have some great young offensive weapons. Garcia and Murphy at wide receiver, and then Tice at tight end are all 27, and look to improve in the next coming years. Biggest issues there, questions at quarterback. They seem to be ready to move on from David Chop. So if he's traded, do they go with Quandre Quintanilla, who had some flashes, but is in the 50s overall? I don't know if that's a guy you trust with your franchise. So what is the answer going to be at quarterback, and how quickly can they address that? Also, they're in a super tough division that just saw 2 teams advance to the top 4 in the AFC in the Steelers and Browns. So it could be a tough division to break through. But again, I think a lot of solid pieces there to go along with a couple big questions. After Baltimore, I have New Orleans. New Orleans went 3-14 this year. They would have had the number 2 pick, but they had traded their first rounder. So instead, in the upcoming draft, they have their 2nd, 3rd, and 5th still to draft with. A lot of their best players are 30 plus. If they can get some young guys up to speed quickly, maybe they can merge old and new on the same team and make a big push. I mean, I'm a huge believer in Okoye Landrum. I think he's going to be a fantastic quarterback. I don't know how quickly he can elevate them from the ranks of the 3 and 4 and 5 win teams. But they have Landrum. They have a great couple of cornerbacks in Madrano and Kenneth Wheat. So again, some spots of brilliance. And that amazing guard, Barraclaw, who they're going to have to pay him a fortune starting in just a couple years to stick around, but an amazing UDFA pickup, a 79 overall guard. So some great pieces in there, and if they can find good players with the capital that they have, I think they'll be on the upswing. Still could be a couple years out from building a team to compete at the level where they'd be looking at a playoff spot, I think. After that, we go Minnesota. Minnesota just went 4-13. Christian Sinnott had a rough year, 29 interceptions, second most in the league. Now, in his defense, I think he could use some better weapons. The best receiver this year was a 74 overall who's 32 years old, and then a 67-year-old who's 28. A 67 overall who was 28 years old, which, mid-60s, we're talking just above what has kind of become the new replacement level. So definitely hard for a young quarterback to break through with the weapons that he has. I've been a Sinnott believer for a long time. My faith is starting to waver, but I have to admit doesn't have the best group around him. They do have a great young offensive line there in Minnesota, and they are once again stacked with picks in the draft to recharge. They have 15 draft picks, currently most in the league. They have 5 of the top 100, their own first and second, Carolina's third, and then the 4th round, at the top of the 4th, they have San Francisco and New Orleans, so 1 and 2. And then right beyond that is their own 4th. So they have 5 of the top 100 picks, and then their 4th rounder is number 101. And then they own like half of the 4th round after that. It's wild. So a lot of great draft capital, a lot of potential for improvement. But I think it'll be drafting that talent and then improving it over a couple of years in the best case scenario, I think. So they're a little bit further down on my list. After them, I have San Francisco. San Francisco was 1-16. They have the number 1 overall pick currently in the coming draft. This year, they were last in points scored. They were last in yards, offensive yards. I don't think Solano is the answer. I think they need a quarterback to pair with Fonte Nebel and a couple of their other offensive top draft picks in years past, like Carlos Ramos and Fernando Thomas. So we will see what they do with that number 1 overall pick. Also, having traded away their 2nd and 4th rounders, so after number 1 overall, they don't have a ton of draft capital. They're picking at the top of the 3rd, the 5th, and the 6th. So some money, some draft capital, not as much as some other teams, and a much farther way to go to dig their way up from the cellar. Number 1 overall should help. But yeah, still some growth that needs to happen for that team. And then finally, I have the New England Patriots. I think this franchise is in one of the toughest spots in terms of long-term viability. I think they have... So they just finished a 5-12 season. So despite only having 3 players on their roster above a 72 overall, they won 5 games. Unfortunately, that means they're only picking 8th overall in the coming draft unless they make a move to move up. I think the Rashawn Lyons deal has kind of set them back, and they are picking up his 5th-year option. That was decided midseason, so they're paying him a huge sum of money next year, over $12 million, to play for them. I don't know if that will be the end of his tenure. Based on his league-leading interception numbers, I think it should be. But there's at least 1 more year of paying Lyons a lot. So, again, they have some draft capital and some free agency capital to start moving in the right direction. But honestly feel like they might not even have bottomed out yet. I feel like next year they could be picking even higher than eighth, and it'll be up to them to take their top 10 pick this year and maybe a top 5 pick next year, move on from Lions, and then package all of that into the foundations of a new franchise, starting something new. I love the guys in New England. I'm fascinated by what they're doing, and I'm rooting for them every step of the way. I do think that franchise has a ways to go. Again, so in terms of teams that have not made the playoffs, I think that streak could be continuing for a few seasons to come. But those are just my guesses. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Which of these 7 teams you think will be the next one to break into the playoffs in the coming years. And that is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by. And as I say to all users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.